1,000 packs of heroin every month, and they allegedly hid their product inside boxes of Apple Jacks cereal. CBS 2's Sonia Rincon reports on these drug arrests from Williamsburg.
Chapter 1. The Abandonment. The night Cleopatra Vaughn was born, Harlem breathed cold and wet under a leaking sky. It was one of those November nights where the wind sliced like razors through the brick corridors of Wagner homes. An old woman, Ruby Vaughn, was the only soul outside at 3:12 a.m., rocking on her rusted porch swing and muttering scripture under her breath. She had lived through heroin epidemics, blackouts, and crooked cops, but she had never heard a baby cry with such fury until that night. Wrapped in a white sheet stained with blood and rainwater, the newborn girl had been left on Ruby's porch like a haunted offering. The only clue to her bloodline was a thick gold chain with a lion medallion clenched in her tiny hand and a birthmark in the shape of a crescent moon on her left shoulder. Ruby took one look and said,
"You ain't no mistake. You a prophecy."
Her mother, Eliza Vaughn, was a ghost long before that night. Rumored to have vanished into the Colombian drug world, she was last seen on a yacht with a man named Raúl El Mago Santoro, a feared cartel prince from Medellin who controlled the flow of heroin from the Caribbean to the East Coast. Nobody ever proved Cleo was his daughter, but the streets whispered it, the way her eyes stayed calm in chaos, the way she didn't blink when boys twice her size barked at her. It was in her blood, a lineage of power, charm, and calculated violence. By age 4, Cleo wasn't just walking. She was watching how her grandma hustled rent money through poker games, watching the neighbors cut deals on the staircase, watching how women used softness to survive, and how men died pretending they were hard. By 7, she was learning not to cry when the lights got cut off, or when the roaches crawled over her math books. Her teachers said she had a genius IQ. Her grandma said,
"Them books won't save you, girl, but your mind might."
She didn't ask questions about her mother. Didn't need to. The pain was a constant, like the busted radiator that hissed all winter long. She saw women break from absence. But Cleo, she hardened from it. She wasn't the prettiest girl in the project. She was the most dangerous, and no one even knew it yet. The first time Cleo got into a fight, she didn't throw hands. She whispered into her classmate's ear,
"I know your daddy cheating on your mama. That's why she cry at night."
The girl collapsed crying in the hallway. Cleo got suspended. That's when Ruby sat her down and said,
"You ain't got to lift a finger to kill someone, baby. Your tongue already a blade."
And Cleo smiled, because even at 9, she knew. She wasn't made for the shadows. She was born to own the darkness. Chapter 2. Surviving Tactics. There was no manual for surviving the Wagner Projects, only instincts. And Cleopatra Vaughn had those sharper than switchblades. By the time she was 10, she knew which stairwells to avoid after dark, which elevators smelled like blood, and which corners turned boys into bodies. Her grandma Ruby kept her close, but Harlem had a way of raising its own, even when elders tried their best to block the wind. Cleo started selling candy at school. Not the kind you find in corner stores, but imported Colombian chocolate she bought in bulk from a Dominican lady on 116th. She flipped it at 5 times the price to kids who thought foreign meant luxury. Her locker became a vault. Her rep spread faster than fire in a tenement building. They called her Queen Candy by the end of 6th grade, but candy was just the beginning. By 13, Cleo wasn't interested in boyfriends. She was watching their big brothers, how they moved work, how they stashed money, how they fought for turf like it was real estate. She learned silence could be power. While the other girls wore lip gloss and chased popularity, Cleo was building an empire of respect, one move at a time. She saw how the older heads played chess with people. They never touched the product, never stood on the corner. They moved like ghosts, always one step ahead of cops and competition. That's when she made a promise to herself. If I ever touch this game, I'm going to run it like a business. Cold, smart, ruthless, and Harlem would pay her rent, not in money, but in loyalty and fear. One night, Cleo caught a local dealer named Frog plotting to rob her grandma's place. He thought the old woman kept pension cash in a jar above the fridge. He didn't know Cleo had been reading his moves for weeks. When Frog slipped into the kitchen window, Cleo was waiting with a frying pan in one hand and a burner phone in the other. "You got 60 seconds to walk out, Frog," she said, voice cold, "or I call the cops and your plug." Frog laughed, until she named his plug, his baby mama's name, and his cousin locked up for a charge he didn't commit. Frog left. He never looked Cleo in the eyes again. The word spread. "Don't play with the Vaughn girl. She don't fight. She finishes." By 14, older dealers were inviting her to dice games and asking her opinion on corner strategy. She never touched drugs, but she knew who bought them, who cut them, who owed who. Her mind was a map. And the city was unfolding. But even maps have traps. Because with power comes envy. And Cleo was rising too fast. One day, Ruby sat her down again. This time, her hands were shaking. Not from age, but from fear.
You smart, Cleo. Smarter than all of them. But you ain't got no armor. Be careful, baby. Don't let your mind get ahead of your soul.
Cleo kissed her on the forehead and said something she never repeated again. "I don't have a soul, Grandma. I gave it to Harlem a long time ago. And with that, a queen started building her crown from scraps." Chapter 3. Pretty Don't Protect You. By 15, Cleopatra Vaughn's face could stop traffic. Honey brown skin, sharp cheekbones, hazel eyes with flecks of amber, like God got bored and painted her different. In a place where struggle made people hard and cold, Cleo moved like Harlem's soft warning. Beautiful, yes, but deadly if disrespected. Boys came at her like flies to syrup. Gang members, hoop dreams, scammers with fake gold and real intentions. Teachers gave her A's just to get a smile. Older women warned their sons, "Don't get caught up with that Vaughn girl. She'll eat you alive." But Cleo wasn't looking for love. She was looking for leverage. She knew early that her looks weren't a gift. They were bait, weapons, traps. She watched her mother's beauty turn into bondage, saw women in Harlem treated like trophies when they were young, and like trash when the shine wore off. That wouldn't be her story. So she used it. She learned to control the room without speaking, to say no in 5 different ways without raising her voice, to make men feel powerful while pulling their strings. They thought she was flirting. She was studying them. But even with all her game, Cleo wasn't invincible. She still walked the same cracked concrete, still felt fear when sirens screamed too close. And one night, it almost went bad. She was walking home from a corner store on 124th when 3 boys in a rusted Crown Vic pulled up. They weren't locals. The way they stared, not like she was pretty but like she was prey, made her gut twist.
"Yo, Ma, come here. We just want to talk."
One of them said. Cleo kept walking. One hopped out.
"Yo, don't be disrespectful."
He grabbed her wrist. Wrong move. In a flash, Cleo reached into her coat pocket and jabbed a small blade into his thigh, not deep enough to kill, but enough to make him scream like a toddler.
I said, "Don't touch me."
She hissed. The car peeled off. He limped behind it, cursing and bleeding. That was the night she earned a new nickname in the neighborhood, Cleo the Cold. Not because she didn't feel, but because she couldn't afford to. Back home, Ruby didn't even flinch when Cleo told her.
You ain't pretty for them,
She said.
You pretty for you, but don't ever confuse pretty with power. You get your power from your mind and your heart. The rest is just packaging.
Cleo
Nodded, but deep down she already knew. Pretty could be peeled off. Only power could protect her, and so she made a vow in that small bedroom with paint-chipped walls and a busted heater. No man would ever own her. No face would ever save her. Only strategy would. That same year, she met a young hustler with raw ambition and no direction. Corey, but by the time she was done with him, he wouldn't just be a hustler. He'd be dealer, Harlem's weapon. Chapter 4. Meeting Dealer. Corey Barnes was just another Harlem runner when Cleo first saw him. 16 years old, lean frame, gold tooth, smooth talk. He stayed with a backpack full of dime bags and dreams bigger than his hustle. He wasn't built for leadership, not yet. He was fast, loyal, and reckless. The kind of boy Harlem either ate alive or used as a pawn. Cleo wasn't impressed. He was posted outside the Chinese spot on 125th, talking loud like he wanted the world to know he was next up. She could tell he wanted to be respected, but didn't yet know how to earn it. That night, he tried to holler. She almost kept walking, but something in his eyes, hungry, stubborn, unbroken, made her pause. She turned and said,
You out here selling crumbs, but you got king energy. That's a waste.
He blinked.
Say what?
She stepped closer, calm and collected.
I see something in you. But if you stay on this path, you go and die on this corner or end up serving a boss who don't even respect you.
He laughed, unsure if she was serious. She was. The next day, she dropped a book in his hand, The Art of War, told him,
Read that and meet me at the bench near the basketball court in 2 days.
Corey thought it was a game, but curiosity had a chokehold on him. He read it, twice, showed up early to their second meeting, asked questions like a student hungry to learn. Cleo smiled.
You're not dumb,
She said.
you're just undirected.
That's how it started. For the next year, Cleo molded him, gave him strategy, taught him about surveillance, communication discipline, and the power of silence. She helped him build structure, not just hustle. She named him Dealer, not because he moved product, but because he was about to start dealing fate. He formed a crew, the Supreme Team, not your usual stick-up kids and corner boys. These were thinkers, hitters, and earners, men and women Cleo helped recruit. Everybody had a role, everybody had loyalty, and everybody understood one thing. Cleo was the mind, Dealer was the muscle. Together they would rebuild Harlem's underworld, not like the Italians, not like the Dominicans, but smarter, colder, stronger. By 17, Dealer wasn't standing on corners anymore. He was orchestrating them. His crew had 4 trap houses, 2 laundromats as fronts, and a silent cut of every dice game east of First Avenue. But their eyes were on something bigger. Not just Harlem, the whole damn city, and standing in their way, the New York Mafia. But Cleo had already started planning, because what the mob didn't understand, this wasn't about drugs. This was about empire. Chapter 5. The Rise of the Supreme Team. Dealer ran the streets, but Cleo ran the board. Within 6 months of formation, the Supreme Team was more than a crew. They were a movement. Every hustler in Harlem started whispering their name, not out of fear, but out of respect. They weren't loud, they weren't sloppy. They weren't just another group of trigger-happy youngins chasing corner fame. They moved like the military, calculated, silent, with a code. 1. Loyalty was law. 2. No bodies unless necessary. 3. Every corner paid Cleo's tax. Dealer transformed into something Harlem hadn't seen in a decade. A young boss with both brains and heart. Not just a shooter, not just a plug. He made sure his crew's families ate. Paid for funerals. Put kids in school. Even had 2 of his soldiers enroll in community college to study accounting and real estate. Cleo's influence was everywhere. She had them reading Machiavelli, Sun Tzu, and books on how the mob built Las Vegas. They called it game class. The first big takeover happened on 138th Street, a Dominican-controlled trap that ran dirty product and had a rep for killing off competition. Cleo studied them for weeks, knew their drops, their blind spots, even their girls' schedule. She gave Dealer the play. Don't come through shooting, come through thinking. Buy the corner out from under them. Pay the OG who runs their work to switch sides. Flip his lieutenant. Then when they realize they've been played, you already own the block. And it worked. No gunfire, no bodies, just strategy. Soon, Cleo had operatives in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and the Lower East Side, people who answered directly to her. She didn't care for fame. Let Dealer take the spotlight. But everybody in power knew. If you wanted a meeting, you went through Cleo. She met with Russians in Brighton Beach, Nigerians in Queens, even sat across from ex-Jamaican shower posse generals who thought they could intimidate her. They left the meeting with handshakes, a new respect. But not everyone was impressed. The Italian mob had eyes on Harlem. To them, it was just another piece of a city they thought they owned. And the idea of a black girl from the projects outmaneuvering their operations, that wasn't just bad for business. It was blasphemy. They started sending messages. Bodies dropped, shipments hijacked, local hustlers threatened. Dealer was ready to go to war. But Cleo, she was ready to win one.
We don't match energy,
She told him one night as they sat on the rooftop of their midtown condo.
we control it.
He looked at her, eyes filled with fire and love.
So what's the play?
She smiled coldly.
We take their pieces before they even know we're on the board.
Chapter 6. Blood on the Concrete. The first time Cleo ordered a hit, she didn't blink. It was cold outside, February wind slicing through Harlem like a warning. She stood on the balcony of the condo overlooking the city that she was slowly claiming piece by piece. Dealer was pacing behind her, heat in his voice. One of the mob's street lieutenants, Vinnie Two-Shot Carlucci, had tried to extort one of their laundromats in East Harlem, slapped the manager, burned a stack of cash, told everyone, Harlem don't belong to no supreme team. This still Cosa Nostra land dealer wanted to slide immediately, guns out, street war. But Cleo was calm, always calm.
You don't answer noise with noise.
She said.
You make it quiet. Permanent.
That night, Vinnie's body was found slumped in the driver's seat of his Cadillac, a single shot between the eyes. No witnesses, no cameras, no shell casings, just a queen of hearts playing card on his lap with a red X over it. Message delivered. The mob tried to play it off like it was a rogue act, but Cleo knew better. That was them testing the line, seeing how far they could push before she pushed back. So she did. In 1 month, Cleo launched a silent blitz. 5 key Mafia street dealers vanished. 2 of their cash spots were robbed, not for the money, but for the records. Their Bronx stash house was hit, product taken, and the walls tagged with "Crowned by Cleo." The Italians called a meeting. Cleo sent Dealer. She stayed in the shadows. At that sit-down, a greying capo named Moretti looked Dealer dead in the eye and said,
Back in the day, your people worked for us.
Dealer smiled.
Back in the day, your people got off boats. This is Harlem. Now,
The Italians threatened blood. Dealer didn't flinch.
I suggest y'all get used to a black queen running this part of town. If not, we'll bury tradition with your soldiers.
That week, the streets turned into a battlefield. Gunfire on 125th. Explosions near Hunts Point. Bodies surfacing in the Harlem River, zip-tied and faceless. Cleo stayed 3 steps ahead. Her lieutenants moved like shadows. Every loss the mob suffered made her stronger. Harlem chose a side. And it chose the crown. But war comes at a cost. One of Cleo's top soldiers, Malik Stacks Price, got caught slipping in the Bronx, ambushed, shot 5 times in front of his daughter's daycare. The news made Cleo pause. Not grieve, calculate. She stood over his casket 2 days later and whispered,
This is chess. Sacrifices come with the board.
But in her heart a cold wind moved through her. She was winning, but she was bleeding to do it. Dealer noticed her silence one night.
You all right, queen?
He asked, wrapping his arms around her as they sat by the fireplace in their brownstone. She nodded, but her eyes were somewhere distant.
I'm building something that's going to change everything. But the price of a crown is blood.
He kissed her forehead.
Then we spill it together.
Chapter 7. The Italian Lineage. From the novel Cleo Vaughn, Queen of Harlem, by Timothy Jones. Chapter 7. The Italian Lineage. They came from Brooklyn in tailored suits and quiet arrogance. The Genovese family had deep roots, 5 generations of mafia blood flowing through New York's underbelly like polluted water. They didn't respect new money, especially not black money, especially not a woman's. So when Cleo's name started ringing louder than any capo, Don Giovanni Moretti summoned his top lieutenants to a brownstone in Bensonhurst and said the words that made blood boil in backrooms: end her, or bow to her. Either way, I want her name erased. Cleo knew they'd escalate. This wasn't just about turf now. This was about legacy, pride, old bloodlines that didn't believe in evolution. To them, the streets were theirs by birthright. They didn't understand that Harlem had changed, that a black woman from the projects could rewrite the rules. She wasn't just attacking their operations, she was insulting their history. One night, a letter arrived, no return address, hand-delivered by a Dominican kid with nervous hands. Inside was a single sentence: blood is thicker than ambition. Cleo smiled. So is power, she whispered, and tossed the letter into the fireplace. To beat the Italians, she knew she couldn't just fight with bullets. She had to beat them at their own game. So she started digging, not into their crews, but their families. The brothers, cousins, and nephews the mob kept out of the streets. She studied their side businesses, secret investments, and offshore bank accounts. Anything that could put pressure on the family without drawing blood. She found their weakness: greed. Through a fake real estate front, Cleo and her team bought out 2 buildings the mob used for laundering cash. Without knowing who was behind it, the Genovese family sold, pressured by fake zoning threats and legal notices Cleo had arranged with the help of a corrupt city clerk on her payroll. By the time they realized they'd lost control of their money pipeline, Cleo had already converted the buildings into luxury rentals. Fully legal, fully locked in. She was laundering their own money back to herself. That was the first time the Mafia felt real fear. Not because of a body drop, but because they were being outsmarted. They retaliated fast. A bomb under one of her trap cars. A young runner stabbed in the Bronx. Dealer's cousin shot in the chest outside a strip club. Cleo didn't flinch. Instead, she ordered the quiet execution of 3 lower-level Mafia affiliates. Left them in an alley with playing cards on their foreheads: king, queen, ace. At this point, New York was on fire. The media spun stories of black urban gangs clashing with organized crime, but they didn't understand. This wasn't a clash. It was a transition, and Cleo Vaughn was the bridge from old crime to new empire. She wasn't just surviving the war, she was rewriting its rules. Chapter 8. Harlem Rules. To rule Harlem, you didn't need an army. You needed respect. Not the kind you demanded, the kind you earned when people feared you and still loved you. Cleo understood that better than any man who ever ran a block. She didn't just control Harlem, she curated it. Every hustler, corner captain, and crooked store owner operated under Harlem rules. Not laws. Not codes written in dusty notebooks passed down from 80s legends. This was Cleo's constitution. 5 unwritten rules enforced in silence. Rule 1. No kids. Ever. Anyone who touched a child, intentionally or through carelessness, vanished. Their body was never found. Their name never mentioned again. Rule 2. No product in schools or churches. Cleo respected sanctuary. She grew up watching her grandmother pray over burnt toast and tap water like it was communion. The church was sacred. The schools were escape routes for the lucky. She refused to poison either. Rule 3. Every dollar earns a tax. You wanted to move weight in Harlem. Break bread. A percentage went to Cleo's infrastructure fund, used to pay for lawyers, safe houses, bond money, and low-income groceries for selected families. She ran the game like a city. Rule 4. Snitches live short. There were no warnings. No court, no second chances. You get caught, you stay silent. If not, Harlem becomes your coffin. Rule 5. All moves must be strategic. Random violence wasn't just reckless, it was weakness. Cleo's empire thrived on efficiency. Every hit, every flip, every trap house opening had to pass through her lieutenants for approval. Even Dealer followed that rule, especially him. By enforcing these rules, Cleo became more than a name. She became a system. The Supreme Team was no longer a gang. It was a syndicate, with bankers, accountants, hitters, drivers and scouts all loyal to the crown. The police? They knew something was happening but couldn't touch it. Every time they thought they had a wiretap or a snitch, the case fell apart. Cleo paid attention to details. Her inner circle rotated. Her phones changed weekly. Her lawyers were Ivy League and bulletproof. One night, a Harlem OG named Roscoe pulled Cleo aside during a dice game.
You moving like a ghost, baby girl. Ain't nobody ever done it like this. Not even Rich, not even Fritz.
Cleo rolled her dice, hit 7. She smiled.
They played the game. I'm rewriting it.
But pressure builds in silence. The more power Cleo held, the more eyes followed. The feds started watching. DEA agents began shadowing. The NYPD got federal funding to form a task force named Operation Royal Flush. And the streets? They loved her. But love turns to jealousy real quick in Harlem. Cleo knew it. Dealer knew it. Which meant one thing: time to tighten the circle. Because soon war wouldn't come from the streets. It would come from the system. Chapter 9. Cleo's Code. Cleo Vaughn didn't believe in luck. She believed in leverage. In Harlem, everyone had a code, but most of it was lip service. Cleo's code wasn't spoken. It was enforced. And it started with one word: control. From the outside, she was untouchable. The Supreme Team had the blocks locked, the mob on its heels, and a loyal network of dealers, drivers, and clean money fronts that ran smoother than Wall Street laundering. But behind the scenes, Cleo was sharpening the most important weapon of all: her discipline. She didn't smoke, didn't drink, didn't indulge in the same vices that brought down men twice as ruthless. Dealer tried once to get her to celebrate with champagne after they closed on a property in Queens. She lifted the glass, tapped his, and let it sit untouched.
This ain't the celebration,
she said.
This the setup.
He nodded. He knew better than to argue when she was in code mode. Cleo's code had layers. Don't pay off dirty cops. That was her boldest rule. One dealer disagreed with, heavily.
You can't run a kingdom if the police don't fear you,
he argued one night. Cleo was calm, sitting across from him with her legs crossed in black silk pajamas, her mind already 10 moves ahead.
They don't fear who pays them,
she said.
They fear who they can't predict.
Dealer gritted his teeth.
But that's how the mob survived. They paid the system, bought the courtrooms.
And look what happened to them, Cleo replied. They built palaces on shaky ground. I'm building something stronger. The truth was, Cleo hated the idea of needing anyone, especially the government. She didn't trust dirty cops, not because they were crooked, but because they changed sides when the price shifted. She didn't want to be protected by bribes. She wanted to be respected by force. But her code came with a blind spot. Because what she didn't see, not yet, was that the very system she refused to touch was quietly setting traps in her shadow. Meanwhile, her enemies were adjusting. The Italians started outsourcing hits. The feds began flipping lieutenants. The media started running Queenpin of Harlem stories, sensationalizing her power, painting her as a menace instead of a mastermind. But Cleo kept moving, always calm, always cold. Then came the one hit she never expected, an inside betrayal. A mid-level soldier in her own crew, someone she fed, housed, and mentored, got bagged on a gun charge and flipped. Gave the feds everything he could: drop spots, stash houses, even phone burner patterns. Cleo found out through one of her lawyers, a soft-spoken black woman from Brooklyn who had once clerked for a federal judge. "Cleo," she said during a rooftop meeting.
They coming? Quiet, smart, legal.
Cleo's jaw tightened.
I knew this game would test me,
She said.
but I didn't think it would be chess with ghosts.
That night, she sat in her study, alone, staring out over the city. Dealer entered quietly, a rare sadness in his voice.
What we doing, Queen?
She didn't answer right away. Then finally,
We don't change the code. We change the players.
Chapter 10, Dealer's Transformation. Corey Barnes was long gone. What stood in his place now was Dealer, Harlem's most feared and respected tactician. Cleo had built him from muscle and ambition into something more, a boss who didn't just command the streets, he owned their rhythm. But even power changes a man, and Dealer was changing. At first, he followed Cleo's lead like a soldier, quiet, focused, loyal. But as the body count rose, so did the weight on his spirit. Dealer never had a problem shooting somebody. But now he was giving orders to do it, watching men who trusted him carry out executions, kidnappings, cleanups. The blood wasn't just on his hands anymore, it was on his name, and that kind of blood never washes off. He started sleeping less, drinking more, sitting in the condo at 3 a.m. with a Glock in his lap and a look in his eyes like he'd seen the devil, and shook his hand. Cleo noticed.
You good?
She asked him one night as they sat in silence, Harlem glowing outside their windows. Dealer didn't answer right away. Then he said,
When you first met me, I was trying to survive. Now I'm running this shit, but sometimes I feel like I lost myself in it.
Cleo didn't comfort him. Instead, she reached out and held his hand, her voice low and cold.
You didn't lose yourself. You shed what you didn't need.
Dealer's transformation wasn't just emotional. It was strategic. He started setting up satellite crews in Jersey, Yonkers, and Long Island. Connected with Jamaican cliques for firepower, with Nigerian fraud kings for clean accounts, and digital finesse. He began buying real estate through shell companies Cleo created. Warehouses, trap-friendly properties, and safe houses all under fake owners. He wore suits now. Didn't speak unless it was war talk or money talk. Didn't touch product. Didn't trust nobody but Cleo. Then came the night that truly changed him. One of his lieutenants, Money Mo, got caught trying to skim off top. 10,000 missing. He lied. He begged. Dealer didn't flinch. Put one in Mo's chest and walked away. No speech, no warning. Just a bullet and a silence that froze the whole trap house. The crew watched him differently after that. Not like a homie, like a god. Cleo watched it all unfold from the shadows. Proud, yes, but cautious. Dealer had become everything she molded him to be. But she also knew something dangerous was growing behind his eyes, the taste of power. And once a man gets addicted to that, even love can't bring him back. Still, he remained loyal. To her. To the crown. Even as the war with the mob simmered like lava under pavement. Even as the Fed started sending silent subpoenas and freezing shell accounts. He told her one night,
If they ever come for you, I'll go loud.
She kissed his hand.
If they come for me, it's already too late.
Dealer gritted his teeth.
Then we take the whole city with us.
Chapter 11. The Setup. The trap ain't always set with guns. Sometimes it's paperwork. Sometimes it's a smile in a courtroom or a name on a sealed indictment. Cleo knew how to handle the streets, the shooters, the rival bosses, the mob. But this was the kind of war she couldn't see coming, because this war wore suits. It started with a quiet freeze. One of her laundromat accounts, a shell company in Delaware, suddenly locked. No explanation. Her lawyer couldn't even get a call back. Within days, 2 more accounts were flagged. Then the feds raided a bodega connected to her downtown stash spot, looking for fire code violations. There were no charges, no arrests, just pressure. That's how the feds move. Not with raids, with ropes. Tightening slowly until you can't breathe. Meanwhile, a few soldiers started acting strange. Cleo noticed it, eyes darting during meetings, questions about routes and stash schedules that didn't make sense. She tested them, fed them false info, watched it leak right back to a DEA contact in the Bronx. She smiled coldly.
We got a rat.
But it wasn't just one. Her silent war with the government had begun. She had always refused to pay off police. Her enemies, the Italians, the Dominicans, even some Harlem OGs, they played ball. Slipped envelopes under desks, greased judges, kissed the rings of men in government shoes. Cleo didn't. She believed power meant being uncontrollable. That made her righteous. But it also made her vulnerable. They hit her accountant next, a clean-cut Columbia grad named Felix, who used to wash money through property taxes and backdoor loans. The feds caught him on a wire talking reckless about real estate flips. Offered him 30 years or a deal. He folded. Told everything. Told enough. The government wasn't just watching anymore. They were building. Dealer wanted to go scorched earth.
Let me find out which Fed gave him the deal,
he told Cleo one night.
We can make an example out of somebody.
But Cleo stopped him.
This ain't a shootout. This is chess with cameras.
She pulled out a map of the city and started circling key fronts, stash locations, shell properties.
We gotta liquidate, shift it all, take what's real, burn what's fake.
Dealer nodded, but the anger in his eyes didn't dim.
You think we gonna beat this?
Cleo looked at him, deadly calm.
We already beat the streets, but now we're in a ring with the system, and the system don't bleed.
The next morning, one of her drivers was pulled over in Yonkers. Cops found a duffel bag full of money and ledger sheets in the trunk. It was the same car she had used a week prior. The driver didn't say a word, loyal to the end. But when Cleo called her lawyer later that day, she got a message that made her stop breathing.
The feds subpoenaed your name. Twice.
The trap was closing. But what the government didn't know? Cleo had one last card up her sleeve, and she was already setting the board for the escape. Chapter 12. Loyalty or Death. The streets talk. But loyalty speaks in silence. As the feds tightened their grip and whispers of indictments moved through Harlem like wind through trees, Cleo's empire began to bend, but not break. Why? Because the core of her kingdom wasn't built on product or profit. It was built on loyalty. But loyalty, like anything real, comes with a cost. The first to fall was Bobby Jet Rollins, a transport specialist who'd run money and product from Charlotte to the Bronx without ever catching heat. Jet had been down since the early days, one of the original Supreme Team drivers. But fear is louder than faith. When the DEA sat him down in a cold room and showed him his daughter's school records, his mother's medical bills, and his girlfriend's social media DMs, Jet cracked. Not loudly, just enough. He gave them routes, alias names, a warehouse location Cleo thought was off-grid. He thought Cleo wouldn't find out. He was wrong. 3 days later, Jet's body was found in the back of a rental van under the Manhattan Bridge. No bullet holes, no signs of struggle, just a cell phone in his pocket with a note on the screen. You chose death. Should have picked loyalty. Dealer was the one who gave the order. Cleo didn't ask questions. She just stared out the window that night, heart heavy, expression stone cold.
You okay?
Dealer asked. She nodded.
He made his decision. So did we.
But Cleo knew this wasn't over. Every loyal soldier had a line. Some lines were thicker than others. Some bent, some snapped. Her job now wasn't to test their loyalty. It was to eliminate the option of betrayal. So she started cleaning house. Anyone acting too emotional, too curious, too inconsistent, they were either demoted or disappeared. Not with violence, with silence. Her trusted inner circle was cut in half. What remained was a skeleton crew of killers, thinkers, and cleaners. The kind who didn't care about fame or Instagram or legacy. The kind who didn't blink when orders were given. She didn't want applause. She wanted results. Meanwhile, the feds were shifting tactics. Instead of charging her, they were bleeding her. Frozen assets, fake code violations, IRS audits on shell companies that didn't even exist on paper 5 months ago. Her lawyers were working overtime. The media, painting her as a new age menace, a queenpin hiding behind beauty and brilliance. But Cleo kept quiet. Because while they chased headlines, she was executing exits. Dealer was growing restless, more aggressive. The softer side Cleo had nurtured in him years ago was hardening into something darker. He wanted revenge. She wanted freedom.
You still trust me?
He asked her one night, as they laid in bed with a Glock under the pillow and money under the floorboards. Cleo didn't look at him when she answered.
I trust you more than God.
But even loyalty has a finish line, and Cleo was getting closer to hers. Not because she was weak, but because she knew true loyalty doesn't end in Harlem. It ends with a getaway plan. Chapter 13. Cracks in the Empire. Empires don't crumble overnight. They crack quietly, like pipes in winter. Pressure builds until something gives. And in Cleo Vaughn's empire, the pressure was coming from every direction. First came the media storm. Every headline screamed her name, Queenpin of Harlem under federal investigation. Cleopatra Vaughn. Beauty, brains, and blood. FBI links woman kingpin to mob war, coastal drug ring. They didn't know the full story. Didn't care, they just wanted the fall. The papers painted her as a villain. The blogs called her a legend. The streets. They were torn. Then came the money strain. Federal seizures froze over $3.2 million in fake accounts. Cleo's fronts were now under surveillance. Laundromats, car washes, even the food pantries she had set up as part of her clean outreach. Product still moved, but slower, riskier. And with product moving slower, trust began to rot. Her inner circle, once bulletproof, started showing small fractures. 2 soldiers argued over a missed payment. A courier tried to skim 5 bricks from a stash house. One of her legal team members vanished, leaving behind a laptop that Cleo's tech guy said had been compromised. It wasn't just war with the feds anymore. It was war within. Dealer was spiraling too. He stopped sleeping, started moving recklessly, talking loud in public spots, flashing too much cash, sliding on rivals without authorization. Cleo pulled him aside one night.
You slipping?
She told him calm but firm. His eyes were bloodshot.
I'm watching everything fall around me. What you expect me to do, Queen?
She didn't flinch.
Lead, not lose it.
Dealer clenched his jaw. You still trust me? She hesitated. Just a beat. But it was enough. Dealer stepped back like she'd slapped him. Meanwhile, Cleo was moving behind the curtain, prepping Plan B. She had a property in Belize, bought in cash under a false identity. A boat charter lined up. Cash stashed in 4 different cities. A passport she hadn't touched in years. And in her stomach, new life. She hadn't told anyone yet, not even Dealer. The streets were too loud. And Cleo didn't trust noise. She trusted escape routes. Then came the crack that changed everything. One of her lieutenants, a woman named Tina Goldie Rivera, got picked up by Homeland Security. Smuggling charges. Instead of holding her ground, Goldie folded in under 6 hours. She gave names, dates, warehouse locations, and one location that shook Cleo's soul.
Belize property, listed under alias Renee King.
Cleo
Found out that night, through her lawyer. And just like that, her exit was compromised. Dealer wanted to retaliate.
Let's kill everybody who ever said your name wrong.
He growled. But Cleo was different now. Calmer, sharper, pregnant. No, she whispered.
We cut the fat. We move. Now
He stared at her.
Move where?
Cleo didn't answer. Not yet. Because the cracks were now turning into breaks. And Cleopatra Vaughn was preparing for her final play. One last move to escape the chessboard, even if it meant leaving everything behind. Chapter 14. The Fall of a Queen. It didn't happen in a shootout, didn't happen on the block. There was no helicopter, no high-speed chase, no dramatic last stand. When Cleopatra Vaughn fell, it happened on a calm spring morning, while she sipped mint tea in her penthouse wearing a silk robe and diamond earrings. That's how the system moves. Not loud. Legal. The feds knocked at 6:02 a.m. DEAF, BIATF NYPD. A joint task force wearing tactical gear stormed the building like she was Osama. Helicopters hovered, streets blocked, reporters gathered, even the mailman paused to watch the show. They had warrants, they had paperwork, they had her name at the top of every page. Cleo didn't run, didn't cry, didn't ask for a lawyer. She stood up slow, took one last sip of her tea, and calmly placed her hands behind her back.
About time,
she whispered. They walked her down 10 flights of stairs in front of flashing cameras and nosy neighbours who once praised her for handing out book bags and food baskets. Now, they stared like she was a ghost. Dealer wasn't there. She had sent him away 2 nights earlier, said she needed space, said she'd meet him at the safe house in Newark. She knew the heat was coming, and she wasn't going to let him burn with her, not while she carried his child. The indictment was 47 pages long. RICO charges: conspiracy, drug trafficking, money laundering, obstruction, tax evasion, wire fraud, murder. They wanted her gone. No parole, no deals, no mercy. Her trial became a circus. The media labelled her the Black Queenpin. The prosecutors called her more dangerous than Escobar in heels. The courtroom was filled every day. Reporters, college students, street legends who used to run corners now watching the woman who owned them all. Cleo said little. She watched, calculated, protected what mattered. Her lawyer pushed for a deal, 35 years with eligibility for parole. She declined.
I don't kneel,
she told him.
I never have. I never will.
The verdict came back. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing. Life without the possibility of parole. Cleo didn't blink, didn't shed a tear, didn't look at the crowd. But deep inside, she smiled, because they didn't catch the real Cleo, the woman they arrested. Her cousin, surgically altered, trained, loyal, and well paid. The feds never checked deep enough. Never caught the last passport, never confirmed the last ultrasound, never questioned why a woman 8 weeks pregnant didn't show up in blood work. 3 months later, a postcard arrived at the desk of the lead federal prosecutor. No return address, no message, just a photo. A beach in Belize. A black woman smiling in the sun, holding a newborn baby. A gold lion pendant hanging from her neck. On the back, in perfect script, the system caught a ghost. The queen is free.
In the quiet space where the magic's told, a gentle melody flows like a river, it glides.